Sibling rivalry was so intense it changed the course of English history for the next few centuries. Today, I will introduce you to two older sisters and their baby brother, who thought he was better than both of them. Maybe that looks like a regular patriarchal family where the male youngest child is a spoiled brat. But that was 16th century England. That means their little family quarrel included some beheading, burning at the stake, and some old-fashioned sending to the corner for misbehaving. Did I say corner? I meant tower. Stay until the end of this video and see how daddy issues ruined every chance for good relations between all of Henry VIII's children, and who eventually took the throne for good, and how Bloody Mary ended up being a cocktail when she was a queen. At least she ended up better than Caesar. First he was a dictator, then he became a palace, and today he is a salad. But that's some other story. Today we will have our personal Game of Thrones Tudor style. That means not so much sex, no incest, few killings, and a lot of imprisonment. The winter is coming. At the beginning of our family story, there was Henry VIII, who was, what should I say, wife slayer, Jabba the Hutt, murderer, smelly? I'm going to go with misunderstood. Henry VIII was misunderstood, and he had one desire. Henry wanted to have a son as an heir. His first wife from Spain gave birth to 3 stillborn baby boys. Only one lived for a month and a half, and one daughter named Mary. Henry blamed his wife for this and decided to leave her. The Pope refused to grant Henry a divorce, so he just asked himself to do that. And maybe he changed the religion of the whole country, and all to marry Anne Boleyn. With her, Henry got another daughter named Elizabeth, and then had her executed. Anne, not Elizabeth. Next in line was Jane Seymour, who finally gave birth to a baby boy, Edward. Sadly, she passed away after childbirth. Henry married 3 more times, executed 1 more wife, and died. Still misunderstood. Or maybe he was a monster. It's one of these two. Mary Tudor was a clever child who knew to speak 3 foreign languages. Ironically, that's the same number of broken betrothals she had with members from foreign royal families. Marriage between her parents wasn't happy anymore because it became clear that Catherine of Aragon couldn't have any more children, and Mary was sent to Wales, where she had her own court. She was often referred to as Princess of Wales, as a probable successor. But in 1532, Henry turned to Reformation and cast Catherine aside, and with her, Mary, who was also a devoted Catholic. Now would be the right time to imagine 17-year-old Mary as a teenager of divorced parents whose father replaced her mother with a younger wife, and they have a new baby. Yes, she was bitter, depressed, often ill, and turned to drugs, rock music, suspicious boys, and alcohol. Okay, maybe just the first 3. And Catholicism. She spent her days honouring the religion her father banned. Also, Mary was forbidden to ever see her mother again and was considered illegitimate. That means bye-bye to the crown. The new baby Elizabeth will become queen if Anne doesn't give birth to a baby boy. Let's just say Mary didn't like her sister, but soon they were both in the same problem. They both lived together since late 1533, and Henry was furious at Mary because she didn't call her stepmother a queen. That's why Anne gave her a poisonous apple. Sorry, wrong story. Mary didn't speak with Henry anymore. In 1536, Anne Boleyn was already missing a head, and Henry found a new victim. Did I say victim? I meant wife. Jane Seymour urged Henry to reconcile with Mary, but Henry forced Mary to acknowledge Reformation and denounce Catholicism. Now, Elizabeth was also considered illegitimate. And now there was a new baby, a baby boy, the next in line to be king. Same story again, but this time, Mary decided to accept the new baby and even became his godmother. At that moment, Mary and Elizabeth started to have a normal relationship. Spoiler alert, it won't last. And Jane Seymour died 10 days after giving birth to a new heir, which shook Henry more than anything. In 1542 and 1543, relations between Henry and his daughters started to improve. And in 1544, he decided to legitimize them again. That way, Mary and Elizabeth were again in the succession line. 3 years later, King Henry VIII passed away, and a 10-year-old Edward VI became the king. Now, without their father's influence, 2 sisters and a brother decided to show the world they could ruin their family relations by themselves. There was no need for help. King Edward VI was only 9 when he ascended to the throne, and was under the influence of his guardians. He wasn't a stereotype of a spoiled brat. Actually, he was very clever, and a tall boy, with good health up until the last few weeks. When Edward turned 6, Henry VIII decided to make him a younger version of himself, even in fashion. Imagine 2 of them. Luckily, that didn't happen. And Edward was a great student. He He learned science, foreign languages, and fencing. But one thing the new king loved the most: he was religious, so much that he could argue about doctrine for days. We could have called him a religious zealot of Protestantism. And guess who had a much older sister with that same love for the faith? The problem was that she was passionate about Catholicism. Yes, this is the main reason for their issues. Edward's relationship with Mary soon deteriorated due to their religious differences. That's the same as you having two children. One is a West Ham fan, and the other loves Tottenham. I wonder why anyone would love Tottenham, but you know what I mean. Edward forbade Mary to perform Catholic Mass and tried to force her to abandon her beliefs. He failed. Edward changed religious laws to implement new religion. When he fell mortally ill, Edward decided to remove his sisters from the succession, Mary to protect his religion and Elizabeth with the pretext she was a bastard. Mary was summoned to court, but the plan was to imprison her so she wouldn't try to claim the crown. And I am really not sure what Elizabeth did wrong to him. She was 4 years older than Edward and was sent to live with his father's widow, Catherine Parr, and her next husband. I'm not sure if this fits into the stereotype of an evil stepmother, but she was depressed there, and there were some rumours that she was sexually abused there. By now you have met our sarcastic and rough humour, but this is not something I will joke about. Luckily, Elizabeth was freed from there, but more problems awaited her. After 9 days of Queen Jane Grey, Mary took the throne and decided to erase all the religious reforms in England. And she did it without hesitation. But the way Mary did it is a bit different than the first Christian missionaries, who wanted to spread the religion. She was similar to colonist missionaries in South America. You had a choice. You could choose Catholicism, or you had to choose Catholicism. But if you tried to disobey or don't really mean to convert, you will burn at the stake. And almost 300 people died in that way, and many fled to England. The uprising was imminent, but Mary easily overcame all the obstacles and turned against one particular Protestant, her younger sister Elizabeth. Elizabeth allegedly knew about the plot and was imprisoned in the Tower. That looked morbidly similar to Anne Boleyn's faith, but Mary decided to spare Elizabeth and sent her to house arrest in the countryside for a year. Mary was married to a Catholic champion, Philip II Habsburg, later King of Spain. They didn't have any children, so he didn't get the opportunity to see how a Habsburg jaw looked on a British face. Mary thought she was pregnant on 2 occasions, and the second time, she invited Elizabeth to court to witness the birth of a new heir. In fact, Mary was mortally ill, and then decided to completely reconcile with her sister, and named Elizabeth the heir to the throne. There she showed she was greater than her brother Edward, and bloodier. Ironically, a child that had minimal chance to rule England had a reign of 45 years. Like all families, Tudors had ups and downs, but mostly downs. Maybe the best moment was when Mary decided to name her sister a successor by showing the strength of the family. Medieval English poet Vin Diesel once said in his book, "Speedy and angry. You don't turn your back on family, even when they do."